All right, I'm gonna try to get through this one as best as possible. It's kind of cold over here. It's chilly in the shade. I wanted to sit in the sun, man, but the lighting's all screwed up. But this one's gonna be on. I wanted to do something on love. You know what I mean? What it means to me, why it's important, things of that nature. But to me, love is everything, man. Why is it important? Because I know that it can transmute any other negative or lower level emotion that's existing within you. I mean, that's the simple truth of love. That's how powerful it is. You know what I mean? When you have nothing in your life, sometimes, in those bleak moments, in those very dark moments, love can make the difference, And love looks very different than what you would expect sometimes, But don't mistake love with obsession. In an example, some people believe that they have love for money. I just love money. I just love money. But is it love for money or an obsession with the options that money can create within your life? Which is why I'm a firm believer in just chasing dreams, Never chase the money. Chase the dream. I think chasing the dream is just, in a different form, it's just following your heart, Real love exists sometimes at simply witnessing something that occurs naturally in nature, like peering at a sunrise or noticing the different moon phases. There's so many times where I wake up and I simply look at the sunrise. I'm able to witness it sometimes, and I feel love in that moment, And I know that love is real because it's tangible. It's something that I can actually witness, that happens within the universe. It's a blessing, that God has given me. And I'm able to witness that. It's something that everybody can see too, yet they take it for granted. Yet if we didn't have the sun, we wouldn't be here. It's crazy to think how there can be love in that, but there can be love in nature. There's love everywhere in nature. We just have to be willing to open our minds to see it. One thing I know is that real love is found in everlasting relationships, within my life. And I guess, the term everlasting relationships can really be something not seen until the end, or until your later years, whether those are actually everlasting relationships. But I think you can feel the energy, and I think you can kind of pick up over the years, whether it is an everlasting relationship that exists within your life or an everlasting friendship, is what I'm really speaking about right now. But it's those type of relationships where you don't need to have direct contact with somebody all the time, to continuously be their friend, to know that you would be there in a time of need if they needed you, and vice versa. It's reciprocation. That's true friendship. Someone that'll be there no matter what. You can not talk for a year or two, and then you give them a call and that person says, I'll be there. That's a true everlasting relationship. There's real love in that. You know what I mean? There's real value in that. Real love can be seen and felt when you try and witness the world through a child's eyes. This is one of those purest forms of love. Watching a child experience something for the first time, in my opinion, is that there's so much love in that. There's so much love in that. Take a child to a park for the first time and watch their eyes light up with glee. You know what I mean? Watching a child experience Christmas for the first time. A Christmas morning, opening up a present, trying to figure out what it all means. The magic behind it, the mystery to it. It's There's so much love in that, man. There's so much love in that. Taking a child to a ball game and having them experiencing a baseball game, a football game, you know, whatever they're into. It's there's so much love in watching a child do something for the first time and try to witness that act through their eyes. You know, there's so much love in that. And there's so much memories that you can hold on to when you witness and when you truly experience the love in that. Real love can exist in romantic relationships when reciprocation, respect, and understanding is present. This is definitely true. I wouldn't say this is something that I've experienced in my life, you know, as of yet. You know, I hope for the future to experience this, but I think you can imagine that when there's reciprocation in a relationship, when there is respect, when there is admiration, when there is understanding that is present, I think anything is achievable. But there is real love in that, you know. A healthy relationship, a healthy romantic relationship would require those things. You know, there's strength in that. There's beauty in that. There's growth in that. And you have to be willing to grow with each other in romantic relationships. You can't grow apart. You have to grow together. And you have to be able to sometimes meet a person when they're at a lower form. You know what I mean? To pick them up in times of need. You have to be willing to be there through the thick and the thin, through the good and the bad. And that's what a real relationship should look like. You know what I mean? Love for oneself. You know, knowing when to walk away from people, places, or things that don't serve your higher self. It's crazy. So having love for yourself, you know, that's part of it. You know, knowing when to drop people. You know, drop people when they're not good for you. When you know they're not for you. You have to be willing to let them go. Those negative people, those toxic relationships that you're clinging on to for no fucking reason. You know what I mean? Other than you're attached. You're attached and you know you're attached. And you need to fucking let go. And you know you need to let go, but you don't. You need to do it. For yourself. For yourself. And this isn't selfishness. This is a form of self-love. If you love yourself, you'll do what's best for you. And that's part of it, is releasing toxic relationships. Places. You know, if something's bad for you in a particular place, if a geographical location does not sit well with you, if you are vibrating at such a low level that you need to get out of that place, if you know that there's toxicity everywhere, again, fucking get out. Leave, bounce, pop smoke. Because that shit's not good for you. You know it's not. And there's so many times in life where we as human beings refuse to see the truth that's right in front of us. You know, if a place is not good for you, leave. You have free will. You have the ability to do so, so do it. You know, hold on to that love for yourself because you're important. You're important to this earth. You're important to this fucking universe. It doesn't have to do with selfishness, you know? It's this love for yourself that you have to hold on to. And I'm not talking about narcissistic tendencies, you know what I mean? I'm not talking about being a narcissist and just being in love with yourself and I'm the best and this and that. Like, you're better than no one. But you need to have love for yourself. You need to have respect for yourself. And when people, places, and things are just not good for you, you need to drop them. Which brings me into things. You know, things, substances, you know, if you're abusing something, you know, if you're taking in too much of something that's bad for you, if you're not going to the gym like you know you should be, you know, start doing it. And do it for you. Don't do it for anybody else. Do it because you love yourself. You know? I think there's so many times where we use things too much to cope with certain situations and we think that it makes it better. But in reality, when we look at it, when we're completely honest, you know, when we strip everything down to the studs, we know that we need to drop it, and we continue to hold on. But true honesty and transparency with yourself, when you look yourself in the mirror and you ask yourself that question, and you're truly honest with yourself, that's when real change happens. You know what I mean? A measure of intelligence is your willingness and your ability to change. Albert Einstein once said that. You know, it's another wonderful quote that he has. Don't self-sacrifice, you know? There's so many times in life where, you know, you have your givers and your takers, you know? Knowing that you're a giver, and I'm sure you do. If you are one of those givers out there, you probably know that you're a giver. You probably know that you give too much at times. And this has become a way of life. But again, you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to not sacrifice yourself. Which goes into, you know, my last point is you cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to fill up your cup first. You know what I mean? You have to have a full cup in order to be able to give back. So we can equate this and kind of give a little analogy to it, but when a plane is going down, you know, those oxygen masks flip out. What do they tell you? Put your own oxygen mask on first before you help anybody else near you. This kind of goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about. You can't give to anybody else if you don't have anything within you to give. If you're consistently giving and everybody's consistently taking from you, you're not going to have anything left for yourself. You're going to be falling apart. And you can't do that. You're too important to this universe. So don't forget it.